So I think there are 3 Championship players who Manchester United should be looking at this summer: Joe Bellingham, Hayden Hackney and Haji Wright. And so in this video I'm going to be analysing all 3 of them, but let's start off with Joe Bellingham. So Joe Bellingham does suffer slightly because of his brother's name, because you'd assume that surely there can't be 2 players in the same family with elite level potential. But if you've watched Joe Bellingham play for Sunderland in the Championship this season, and factor in that he's still only 19, I think you have to conclude that whilst Joe Bellingham's development certainly isn't going to be as fast as Jude's, Joe Bellingham can still develop into one of the best central midfielders in the Premier League, if not the world, as like his brother he has almost been engineered to be the perfect modern day central midfielder. A Steven Gerrard regen, mixed with the technical flair of Zidane, obviously not to that level, but it is a good stylistic way of describing Joe Bellingham's playing style. Now, like his brother, he is a powerful and athletic carrier of the ball through the centre of the pitch, which combined with his astute technical ability, enables him to get the ball under control in the centre of the pitch under pressure and quickly turn away before progressing the attack forward with a turn and drive into space. Now, even though I don't think he has the same close control dribbling of Kobbie Mainoo, Joe Bellingham is quicker and more athletic than Mainoo, which is key to what Joe Bellingham offers, as like Jude, he is also fantastic defensively, someone who is well suited to a counter-pressing system, quick to lose balls, covers short distances efficiently and is tenacious, physical, and is able to use his long legs and reading of the game to get to balls most central midfielders wouldn't. But before I carry on the analysis, if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. They've got a variety of different current season and retro shirts, including Manchester United jerseys going all the way back to the early 90s. Depending on where you live, you can also get 7 to 12 day delivery time, as well as a 30-day money back guarantee. But if you want to check out any of the details before you buy, they have got their WhatsApp and email on the site. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you will get a 10% discount for a limited time, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. So having watched quite a bit of Hackney and Bellingham, Hackney is definitely the better technically, although I'd say Bellingham is the more complete and the better athlete. At the moment, sometimes I feel like Bellingham isn't able to get the ball under control immediately with his first touch, which often leads to him having to take a second touch, therefore giving the opposition a bit more time to apply pressure. Hackney on the other hand makes up for Bellingham's athletic and physical advantage by being a lot more efficient in possession, tighter ball control, same ability to turn quickly, and greater vision and overall ability to create, specifically for his through balls in behind the back line. But I actually rate both Hackney and Bellingham incredibly highly, and I think if they got the right move in the summer, either one could end up on the plane with England to America in the World Cup 2026. The question is whether Manchester United is that right move. Personally, I think Manu Kone at Roma should be Manchester United's #1 central midfield target. Ederson from Atalanta was my first choice, but considering Atalanta would likely demand between 45 to 50 million pounds for him, I'd rather just go for Manu Kone for around 30 million pounds, plus one of Joe Bellingham or Hayden Hackney. And I suppose if you are signing Kone, you want the other central midfielder to be slightly more stylistically different, more of a creative and progressive passer than an industrious ball carrier, which is why I'd prefer Hackney over Bellingham. But given the options, if we could get both Bellingham and Hackney for a combined 45 to 50 million pounds, alongside Kone, I think that would be worth doing, because with Hackney and Bellingham, if we did have to sell one of them next summer because they hadn't established themselves as first team regulars, we could still probably sell them on for a profit, because I think both are massively underpriced if they are available for under 25 million pounds. In Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 system, I think Hackney or Bellingham could play in a double pivot, either with a more industrious ball-winning midfielder like Agate, or alongside someone more creative like Bruno Fernandes. Optimally, I think both would suit being partnered by a sitting midfielder alongside them, someone like Agate or Sekou Kone. But if United were chasing the game, I think Hackney and Bellingham's skill sets are both complete enough to enable them to slot in alongside either Bruno Fernandes or Mainoo, and play a slightly more conservative role with the 3 centre-backs behind them. I don't think immediately either Hackney or Bellingham walk into United's starting 11 in the 3-4-3, but after 6 months or so in the league, I could definitely see them having a similar sort of development to the kind we've seen with both Adam Walton and Morgan Rogers, and I actually think both of these 2 players are excellent stylistic comparisons to Hackney and Bellingham, and I'm going to explain tactically how they would fit into Amorim's system later on in the video. But first, let me tell you about the 3rd Championship player that Manchester United should be keeping an eye on and potentially consider signing this summer, and that is Haji Wright. Now, unlike Hackney or Bellingham, Haji Wright isn't a young player who could develop into an elite level Premier League player, but he is someone who I think could be one of the bargains of the summer for Premier League clubs. Now, on the surface, you may question why I would suggest that Manchester United sign a 27-year-old journeyman Championship striker, but I actually think the American could be a similar case to Mateta or Chris Wood, a striker whose development path isn't linear throughout his career, but he improves significantly as he gets into his late 20s. See, Haji Wright has literally only just turned 27 at the end of March, and even though you may be underwhelmed to see he's only scored 10 goals in the championship this season, he did have an ankle injury which did rule him out for a significant proportion of the campaign, but I wouldn't describe him as injury prone, and you can see that when you go back through his record. And so this does make his 10 goals in 20 games seem a lot more impressive. But this is why I think Haji Wright could be the perfect Moneyball signing, because from the eye test and his FB ref report, which I'm going to show you in a minute, I think he could be the exact type of backup striker to someone like Osimhen that United need. See, from the eye test, one thing you'll notice about Wright is how good he is technically, which combined with his physicality and stature makes him the type of centre forward who can link play with direct passes into his feet, with his back to goal and being able to link play with little layoffs, 1 and 2 touches, or receiving more direct passes into his chest and head. And his aerial ability is one of his strengths, as you'll see in just a minute, but he's not just a link play forward, his finishing is also very astute off of both feet, as despite being right footed, he's an excellent finisher on his left as well, having a variety of different finishes in his locker, whether this is shooting from outside of the box, driving the ball back across the keeper into the far bottom corner, or as he showcased against Sunderland, pulling off a more subtle dink finish when under pressure with the keeper rushing out. And his FB ref report further displays him as the type of Moneyball signing that I think is going massively under the radar. But before I show you his FB ref report, a quick reminder, I do have a Patreon. I upload articles on niche and interesting topics. You can get a 7-day free trial or sign up to my in-game Instagram group chat. So if you do want to sign up for that, I'll leave my Patreon linked in the description, comment section, eye above, and on the end screen after the video. So in the championship this season, when compared against every other forward in the league, Haji Wright ranks in the 96th percentile for his non-penalty goals and the 93rd for his non-penalty XG, which he overperforms by 0.21 per 90, and even when you look back at his FB ref report from last season in the championship, you can see that he ranked in the 89th percentile for his non-penalty XG, which he did slightly underperform with his non-penalty goals ranking in the 77th percentile, showing that since he's been in England, the American has shown he's more than capable of getting into goal scoring positions and creating chances for himself. And given that he's now coming into his late 20s, it's not abnormal to see his finishing continue to improve as it has done this season, as his composure and technique in front of goal on its own makes him someone that Premier League clubs should be looking at. But Haji Wright isn't just a goal scorer, and stylistically I'd describe him as a similar kind of forward to Alexander Isak or someone like Nicolas Anelka, primarily someone who's going to be playing centrally but could play from a slightly wider position as an inside forward as well, having the dribbling ability and pace to be able to move into the channels, isolate the defender in a 1v1 before looking to beat him and get into a crossing position. And you can see just how much of a ball progressing threat Haji Wright is with the ball at his feet, as compared against every other forward in the championship, he ranks in the top 1% for his progressive carries and his carries into the penalty area, as well as the mid 90th percentiles for his successful take-ons and his carries into the final third. And even when comparing him against attacking midfielders and wingers, Haji Wright still ranks in the 86th percentile for his progressive carries and the 96th percentile for his carries into the penalty area. Combine this with the fact that when compared against forwards in the championship, he looks very good aerially, ranking in the 93rd percentile for the percentage of aerial duels he has won, alongside sitting in the 92nd percentile for his XG assisted. And so all in all, I think you have to conclude that Haji Wright is one of the most complete centre forwards outside of Europe's top 5 leagues, and at the age of 27, I think he's more than ready for a chance in the Premier League. If we look at the prices, it's reported that both Sunderland and Middlesbrough want around £20 million each for Hackney and Bellingham, which to me seems about £5 to £10 million underpriced. And given that Haji Wright was signed by Coventry about 18 months ago as a Victor Gyökeres replacement for a club record £7.7 million, I think United should be able to pick him up for around £15 million, which I think is good value for money. Now maybe not all three, but I think any one of them could massively improve United's squad depth. And even though all three are playing in the Championship, I would say that all three are definitely Premier League level on current ability. But from a tactical point of view, where would all three fit in? So Joe Bellingham would come into the United squad and offer much needed athleticism and ball carrying ability through the centre of the pitch that United currently lack. I think he could be used either in a midfield double pivot as an alternative to Bruno or Mainu, alongside Agate, or in one of the two interior forward roles, as I actually think using Joe Bellingham in this more advanced role could get the best out of both Ahmad and Bruno Fernandes on that side. Bellingham would provide the athleticism and the off-ball capabilities around Bruno Fernandes in order to give him the freedom to roam across the pitch and influence the game, where from out of possession Bellingham can tuck in alongside Bruno Fernandes, even maybe dropping into the midfield line and being the player who can shuttle across to the flanks and track opposition runners from midfield, playing a similar sort of role to the one we see Barella playing for Inter Milan alongside Hakan Çalhanoğlu. And Ahmad playing as a right wing back is crying out for a runner ahead, which is why I think if Mason Mount could keep fit, he would be perfect for that right-sided interior forward role. However, if Bellingham was signed, he's more than capable of providing the over and underlapping runs that Ahmad needs ahead of him in order to create space for him to cut inside onto his left. Now, Hayden Hackney could play a similar sort of role alongside Bruno Fernandes, either in a midfield three or with Bruno starting slightly higher up in one of the two interior forward positions and then dropping deep to get on the ball. And whilst Hackney wouldn't provide the same sort of athleticism going forward or when tracking runners as Joe Bellingham, he'd still be a significant improvement on Eriksen and would provide the sort of incisive passing ability from deep that you wouldn't get with Bellingham. Haji Wright would play primarily a substitute role off the bench, kind of what Jobe Bellingham is now, but Wright would not only be a more reliable goal scorer from the bench, but he's also better technically, good off both feet, good in the air, capable of finishing from a variety of different positions around the box, but he also has the pace, physicality and the ability to link play through receiving direct passes with his back to goal, and his versatility is such that he could be used as a lone centre forward, in a front two, or slightly wider as an interior forward spinning out wide and looking to break in behind down the channel. And all three combined would likely cost between £60 to £65 million, which I think would massively improve United's squad depth and the long-term potential of the squad. Even if you were to sign Manu Kone for around £30 million from Roma, which would be my preference, and one of Bellingham or Hackney, I would probably suggest Hackney because I think he offers greater stylistic variety to Ruben Amorim alongside Kone in terms of squad selection, with Kone and Bellingham having fairly similar strengths and weaknesses in their game, with Haji Wright preferably being a backup option to someone like Osimhen if Rasmus Højlund was sold to fund the Osimhen deal, with Haji Wright offering something different compared with Xerxes and allowing us to loan out Jobe Martin and Ethan Wheatley, who I think both could use a year on loan for their development. I would say I'm most convinced with Hackney and he's someone I would definitely look to sign. Haji Wright, I guess it depends on the other options available for a similar price. Joe Bellingham in an ideal world, but I would prefer Manu Kone, and so whilst Bellingham is an option, it would depend on outgoings, as Collier and Casemiro would both have to be sold, which alongside Eriksen departing maybe could open up the possibility that United bring in three central midfielders for under £30 million each, rather than spending £50 to £60 million on one player, and in that case Hackney, Bellingham and Manu Kone, for what would probably be a combined £75 million, would be an excellent trio to rebuild the United midfield, not just for the short term but also for the long term as well. So let me know what you think of the three players I've suggested, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below. You can use code Atlantis at checkout to get a 10% discount, and if you want to check out any of my articles and get a 7-day free trial, my Patreon will be on the end screen now as well.